Let me introduce Marcus Herstik.
Hi guys. Hi guys, just a few things to kind of start. The green network, which is I guess sort of, color-wise probably different to what we would normally show in this kind of thing. That's the network we're allowed to hack on. You can connect to the Wi-Fi. Sorry, typo with let's do this with a capital O. No hacking in this section, okay? This is where your Wi-Fis and stuff will connect to. There is no internet connection. There is one IP I'd prefer you not to break at the start. You're allowed to break it at the end if you really want. There might be a few minutes. But just to kind of get a little started, I'm hoping you guys have and girls and have already got a Kali Linux distribution. If you don't have one, look, you can use a licensed USB stick version. Those of you I've given it to, please give them back. I mean, they're not worth that much, I guess, but you can use a VM. Look, there's an OVA file I've got that I can give you guys if you don't know what it is. You can follow along with a friend, you can watch, you can take notes, or if you want, you can try and install the packages yourself. So that's a little caveat there. As I said, no hacking on anything outside the 192.168.1.0 network. Don't be evil. It's a nice little, we had a little discussion about whether that's actually still part of Google or not last night, so I thought that would be a nice one to throw in at our dinner table. But look, try not to break stuff until the end if you can. So these are the Wi-Fis that you're allowed to join. I'll bring that back in a sec. So I don't need to do this. So does anyone need to either install, set up, go through trying to get Kali going? Yeah. So did you want? Can you boot off a USB stick?
I have a OTA file just downloaded from the internet.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. Just import that into your VM software. Sure. Who said that? All right. Now,
Thank you.
they're fresh from Officeworks. They've got a nice fresh USB smell, and I just put some, and I just loaded the ISOs. To make them bootable. I haven't tested all of them. I tested a few and then just kind of got sick and tired of rebooting. Those of you that don't know, the default username and password for Kali is root and Tor. I tried sort of explaining that to my wife yesterday when I ran her through the thing. She didn't quite understand what Tor was. Excuse me. So a little bit about who am I. Look, I'm a teacher. I'm a lecturer now at SCU, although if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I think it says I'm a tutor or academic tutor or something. Recently moved up to the Gold Coast. I was in IT. I'm about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, became a sort of a full-time-ish teacher after doing it part-time at nights and stuff like that for about 6 or 7 years. I got lots of certifications. As you can kind of see, some of them are interesting. I didn't put my Microsoft ones on there because I gather you guys don't really care. So look, I started many years ago in tech support. I've worked my way through as a contractor. I've been a business owner. I've been an IT manager in some startups and stuff like that. Does anyone know who Paul Brown is? No one's ever heard of Paul Brown? So most of you guys don't have any certification or aren't looking to get books and stuff like that for it, because if you have, especially if you're looking at the more networky sort of side, you might have heard of Paul Brown anyway. I've helped him a little bit with a few books. But so that's, I guess, a little about me. What I'd like is, sorry, I'll just jump ahead for a sec, is for those of you that are actually going to be participating, so hopefully you've joined the Wi-Fi, how many people are hoping to kind of follow along? Ooh, lots of people. Okay, that should be fun. Excellent. No pressure. So you've got pen test 2 or pen test 3. Password is let's do this. If you're using a virtual machine, look, it shouldn't really matter whether you are using bridged or NAT. Most of your virtual machines will probably default to NAT. The only thing to check is, can you ping the 192.168.1 network? So 192.168.1.1. If you can ping that, you should be able to see the stuff behind or that's in that network. Now, a few ideas as to what we're going to be doing. So I kind of put in there a little bit about the idea of using the cyber kill chain, but running through it and setting it all up and stuff like that, I guess this is one of the vagaries of writing something about 3 months ago. Is we're not going to necessarily go through all of the steps, but the cyber kill chain is one of the, I guess, the frameworks that a lot of people use, developed by Lockheed Martin, as you can see, kind of 7 steps. We're going to be sort of looking at number 1, a little bit sort of around number 3, 4. We're not going to be installing any malware or command and control, so no 5 or 6, but we will be looking at, again, sort of at option 7. So the idea is we're going to try and find some servers. There are some virtual machines sitting inside our little network. We're going to try and find some vulnerabilities maybe, check some information. I've got a little bit of a fun one in there as well that doesn't really actually come out in the real world unless you're a spy or something crazy, where we're going to try and check an image for some information, find some passwords, maybe crack some passwords, try a bit of an SQL exploit. It's not going to be actually an SQL injection, although there is another virtual machine that you can do that kind of stuff on there if you can find it. It's not too hard to find. We're going to try and gain access to a user account and then hopefully escalate ourselves to root. All in 90 minutes. Maybe. We'll see how far we go. Hopefully, shortly after sort of around the point of finding and cracking some passwords and stuff, I'm hoping that we'll be able to, at that point, if anyone sort of has another talk that they want to go to, you can probably exit out at that kind of point. I can make available, there is actually a walkthrough which I will be going through as well. A step-by-step kind of guide. This is all based on something I wrote for TAFE. So I work for TAFE New South Wales, and this is all based on a guided walkthrough that I did, a capture the flag style activity for them. And so you can get a copy of this, and I'm happy for you guys if you want. Look, you can either hit me up, or we can, I can give you copies of the vulnerable machines, etc., that are in there. So you just need to be able to import some OVAs and stuff at home. I'm happy to give you guys that stuff because I feel it's a good idea to do it. Now, a quick caveat, I'm more of a teacher these days than a techie, and I'm definitely not a hacker for, for hire kind of stuff. So if you've got an X that you want to get some information out of, I'm not the person to ask. Cool. So at this point, does anyone have any quick questions or any issues with getting stuff up and running? People feeling pretty happy, all right. So as I said, this is the network we're going to be going. There are some VMs there. You guys don't know how many there are. Depending on the type of scans and stuff that you do, you may or may not find a number of different machines. But of course, one of the things we're bound by is time here. And sometimes when we're trying to scan networks and stuff, these things can take a while. It's not like in the TV and movies and stuff like that where they bash away and then all of a sudden, hey, look, I'm in. But I have got some shortcuts and stuff for us to try and get through some things. Okay. I guess, are we ready to go? Now, if there's any problems with stuff at the time, by the way, look, I'm happy for you guys to let me know, but we can always, you can always catch up at other points as well. So there's a number of steps, and as such, we can kind of, you can jump back in at a later point. Now, what's one of the first things we need to do when we're trying to get into a network? Or we're trying to see what's going on. What was the first step? Can anyone remember step 1? Yeah, some reconnaissance. So look, I've got my machine up and running. I've got Kali. Hopefully you guys can see that at the back. Is that big enough? The first thing we need to try and do is, I guess, have a look at what is out there. How are we going to discover it? Now, one of the problems with Kali, I find when we're starting to introduce people, is first of all, people go, oh, Kali, it's going to be amazing and it's going to be hacking. And then they look at it and go, it just looks like another Linux distribution. Yes, it is. It's not my daily driver. I don't recommend it as a daily driver, although I know some people that do use it as a daily driver, and I don't think there's any right or wrong with it. I just find that sometimes the updates break Kali a bit. So if you're going to be doing that as a daily driver, make sure you've got lots of backups or store your data somewhere else. But the other thing with Kali is they start looking at stuff and they go, okay, well, actually, let's maybe go. They start looking at it and go, all right, well, what have I got? And there's too many, I wouldn't say it's like too many, but as in there's a lot of different options available when you're trying to find out what we've got. So you're like, okay, well, how can I, out of all these options, what can I use? Like, you know, there's NetDiscover, there's Nmap. Most people have probably heard of Nmap. Right, there's also NetDiscover there. So has anyone used NetDiscover? No. So, I mean, there's two options. The other good part about it is when you click on one of them in Kali, look, it has a tendency to give you a little bit of the help file, which is very nice. You know, it sort of runs it for you straight away. Scanning takes a fairly long period of time, and so I'm going to kind of shortcut it a little bit, and we'll use Nmap. Minus SV. So hopefully we can try and scan the network. Right, so that's our network there. As I said earlier, can you ping it? Oh. And no, I can't. Just to make life interesting for me. 100% loss. It's probably because I've disconnected and reconnected. Oh no, I'm in wireless. Yeah, okay. Oh, why can't I get there? No, it is unreachable.
I have the same problem. I just have to keep trying.
Come on. Come on. Has anyone been able to successfully start their scan? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, come on. I was here early and I tested it all beforehand, supposedly. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's see. All right. Come on. Come on. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. Looks like I got a network. All right, there we go. Now, Nmap, sorry about that. Nmap is one of those tools that's really commonly used. It's built into, obviously, Kali. Kali's nothing special though, right? You could build effectively something like Kali into Debian on the fly if you want, just install the packages as you need them. So it's not, it's one of those things that I think is hyped up a lot more than it used to be. Or that it should be. So many years ago when I first heard about Linux in sort of the late 90s, early noughties, I was like, oh, you know, what's Linux? And then I heard people talking about Linux boxes. I was like, oh, can I have a Linux box? I thought it was like something different. Right? And then someone handed me a computer and I'm like, oh, okay. There you go. So it's nothing special, but I guess it's all the tools in one location, which makes it unique. But there are other ones out there. So does anyone know some of the other ones, or anyone tried any other sort of the hacking OSs? Backtrack. That is Kali. Right? Okay. Parrot. Yeah, that's one that seems to be quite popular these days. Anyone heard of or tried Black Arch? Oh, sorry. So look, there's a number of them out there that will actually allow you to do the same thing. So it doesn't matter. You could install Nmap, pretty easy to install. Now, what are we hoping to find? What have people found so far if they've done their Nmap? Has anyone's completed? No? So a bucket load of different stuff. How many different machines have we found? 4? 5? Not counting the one we're not supposed to kill yet. Okay, so what IPs have we found so far?
540, 101, 102.
So 1.1, 1.5, 1.40,
101, 102.
101 and 102. Okay. No one found .50. Someone found .50. So you did a deeper scan then as well. So look, there are some there that might be harder to find as well. And this is a common thing on a network as well. So the deeper you do your scan, the more likely you are to find stuff. So .50 is actually one of these that I've tried to disable some of the settings on it to make it a little bit harder to find. So it doesn't have the PNP and all that sort of stuff running on it, or the DNLA server and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we found .1, obviously that's actually just the router itself. We found .5, look, that's my main box, that's the one I don't want you to kill yet. .40 and .50, if you found .50, that's, they are both they're the wireless routers. And then we've got 101 and 102, was it? Okay, so with 101, how many different things are on there? I don't actually know what the IP addresses are. I reset all the MACs and stuff like that. So they'll just come up wherever. Does that have lots of options available?
Yeah, about 15.
About 15?
Including telnet, remote exec, VNC,
Okay.
X11 probably connected.
All right. Actually, you know what? Let's see if that is a little faster. What's the difference between these two scans, by the way? Does anyone know? What's the minus F?
Limited bullets.
Yeah. So that.
And the other one's like conversion scans and a listening application.
Yeah, so the SV will tell us a bit more information about what version of the software and stuff like that. So that really can help us pinpoint which ones might be available for us to try and get in. The minus F is just listening for or looking for some common ports. Depending on which scans you run, you may or may not find extra pieces. Okay, so that's going to take a little bit. So over to decreasing. Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so one of the first things we probably need to try and figure out is what ports are open. So when this hopefully comes up, if it does come up. We've got two machines there. One of them is going to have quite a lot of ports open. And we've got one machine which doesn't have very many ports open. And if I had to take a guess, is it 101 or 102 that's got the short list?
102 is short.
And so 102 is going to be the one that I think we should probably have a bit of a... No, it's not there at all.
102's web page has the eyeball and 101's web page has the exploitable tool.
Yeah. Okay. See if I can get there. That's going very slow, isn't it? This is a problem, I guess, with trying to do it all live. I'm directly plugged in, so I should be good. Come on. Okay, so. I might have to get a few people to try and stop some of the scanning.
Yeah. All right.
So how many people still scanning at the moment? Oh, geez. All right.
I think we're just hammering that too.
Yeah.
We need to stop and let you jump in.
All right, so.
DOS mitigation talk later?
It wasn't part of it. I really should have thought that one through a little bit better. Let's see if we can, if it brings up the page. So if we can get a few of you, I don't know, say if every second row wants to stop their scan, so the front row, I guess, can kind of do it if they want, I guess, and every second row. And then maybe we'll swap through a few little pieces and to give you guys a bit of a chance to kind of have a crack. There are some things that you guys will be able to, for example, if once we get onto this page, the image that's there, we can download that image, for example, and then we can do a quick check to see what's on there. We will need to find out with that scan a little bit later, we're going to use some of the information from one of those scans. So if someone wants to either take a bit of a screenshot or note what the ports are for 102, that would come in handy for us a little bit later. Hacking's not normally a group thing either, by the way. I don't know if you've... So it's normally, isn't it typically one person that's just paid a lot of money for access to some bots? No. Okay, so we've got this as one of our pages and a Metasploit. See if we can run that one a little bit again. So built into this, now this is a bit of, as I said, a capture the flag kind of thing. So what we could do is not very much, no username, no password, no login details. You know, sometimes web pages have got like, little login buttons down the bottom and stuff. Has anyone come across those cool ones with people that have got WordPress sites that don't want to remember WP-admin, for example? So if we save this image, because this is a bit kind of weird for us, I'm going to save this image just because it might have some information in there. What kind of things might people put into, for example, an image? Why would you? Yeah, there might be some metadata in there. So yeah, and then there's, so what's stenography?
Like hidden messages and then like white screen stuff like that.
Yeah, so for example, if you wanted to find some really smart people, you could put a crossword puzzle in there that like, in a newspaper or something, and then lo and behold, the smart people figure it all out, and then maybe they can, contact someone. Has anyone seen that in a movie at all? So look, obviously there's EXIF data in there, so we can have things like metadata, which is obviously a good way for us to, for example, if I want to find where my sister is and she puts photos online, like I know she's overseas somewhere at the moment, but could be America, could be Canada, puts a photo up. If I can get a copy of it, or if she sends it to me via WhatsApp or something, I can find out where she was. Now, there is a tool that's not actually built into Kali Linux, which I find is kind of an interesting option, called EXIF tool. Right? You would have to install it if it's not already there. And it can give you all kinds of extra little information in there. Now, does anyone see some information in there that could be interesting? Okay, yeah, a little bit of a comment. Now, what if you don't have EXIF tool? You're using my bootable USB stick. There is one that's built into Kali. It's not very good. And right up the very top, just after the image file type, we can actually see that comment string there. So we can see the same thing. So what is it about this that could be interesting? What is it about this sort of stuff? Well, first of all, what do we think that is? Okay, yeah, it's a type of smiley, right? And then a winky smile. So let's see if we can grab this and have a bit of a look at what could we do with this. Maybe, I reckon maybe it'll take me to a web page, another hidden page. Now, what could we have done to try and find all these kinds of directories? Yeah, look, there are tools in there called Dirbuster. There's a number of tools we could use to try and find the names of directories. If you use that, would it have found this one? Why? Yeah, so Dirbuster uses a dictionary. You can have some pretty cool dictionaries, right? But the chance of something like KZ, capital M, lowercase b kind of stuff, right, being in a dictionary is pretty low, I would say, almost impossible. Look, if you were doing just an absolute brute force where you ticked through every combination of letters and stuff, you'd probably get there, but I don't know whether or not you'd be around to see it. Okay, so we've got a page here. Now, if you guys want, I guess, look, we can bring it up. You can have a look at the page. There's nothing very special there. What is it? Does it have a database backend? That's one of the first things normally hackers will start looking at and they go, oh, maybe there's a database, I can do some kind of SQL injection. Now, SQL injection is a really common way of trying to get into stuff. We won't do actual SQL injection. We'll use a SQLMap tool to take a dump of a database. But if you want, on the Metasploitable on the other server. If people want to have a bit of a play on, Mutilidae and stuff, there are SQL injections and stuff available there. So if you, want to go down your own kind of path or you know what you're doing, feel free to have a bit of a crack on number 101. So what is this though? Well, it's obviously asking for a key. So, okay, it's not giving me any letters. It's not showing me what's in there, which means those of you that have done some HTML kind of stuff, what kind of a form field are we probably looking at? Yeah, look at password field. So we can go into, look at the elements a little bit and go, okay. Oh, they've left me a comment there. What's that comment say? Well, this form isn't connected to MySQL. So it's very nice that they've done that for us. But is there other ways we could have checked to see what it is? Look, you can use things like Burp Suite and stuff like that. We're not going to use Burp Suite. There's lots of tutorials out there on how to use this kind of stuff. But we can see, for example, in this case, that we've got a bit of a form field. It's using a post action. And we can also see that we've got some PHP running in the background, and we can even see that it's the password type field. And there's a name there, the name type is key. Now, if we wanted to see a little bit more, this is not necessarily a hacking tool, right? But your browsers have some very interesting information that you can gather. So using something as simple as, your browser, you can start to see, okay, yep, I've got a request. Oh, one of them, there's a fab icon that didn't actually come down as well. So that's kind of interesting. But we've got a form field here, and I've got a bit of HTML, and I can see they're just working on normal HTTP, no HTTPS.
What did you type to get about
Okay, so to bring this up, I right-clicked and I chose Inspect Element. So we don't actually have an SQL server in there. If we don't have a MySQL server, what else could we do with this? Well, we can try and actually crack the password a bit. Right? Getting like the comment fields a little bit, whatever, it's kind of fun and interesting. The only people, as I said, that kind of use it is maybe a spy might try and put some stuff in there, like hidden in an image or something, but these days they don't need it anyway. So we could use Burp Suite, but we're not going to use Burp Suite to check this out a little bit. When I type the word test or anything else in there, hello or something like that, I can see that I'm getting some parameters here, a key. The key, in this case, my word test, so that's where it dropped the word in there. So what can I use to try and get in here? Can you use a timing attack? A timing attack? Yeah, look, I could try something like a timing attack. Yeah, look, we can just throw a dictionary at it. So why don't we use something like that instead? Now I know that there's this word invalid key that comes up when I type something wrong. So using this, we can actually use another tool built into Kali to try and figure out, okay, what words can I place in there from a dictionary? So getting the fact that I need to know a few things to get this working. Number one, I need to know what is the field that it's using. So in this case, we've got a key field. I've got a response invalid key. And based on those two things, I can try and put in a word list into that field. However, we need a word list now. So do we have a word list? Oh, finally. Yeah, we've got word lists built in. So this is not the one we're looking at, not the one we're looking at. This is the one that we're looking at. Has anyone done a deeper scan on this one, on 102? do an SV, lowercase s, capital V, do an SV on 102. Some of you, maybe the second rows, like, every second row or whatever that didn't do the other scans. Because we might need this a little bit later. Okay, so let's locate a word list. All right, I got a folder called user share word lists already built in there. Lots of word lists in there. Now, when you take a look at that, you won't have rolu, number one, and you won't have rocku.txt. You should just have rocku.gz. So it'll already be zipped for you. It is a massive file. With 14 million lines in it, right? So what I've done is I've stripped out a few of them. This is my, here's one I prepared earlier with only about 1,200 lines. If you throw the rocku.txt, it will get it, right? To give you a bit of a hint, it's around about 25,000-ish. Right, so it's not too far through the list, but it's far enough that it'll take a few minutes for it to pump it in. But if you want to kind of get rid of the first 20, 23,000 kind of things out of the list, you could probably catch up if you know how to delete.
Are these word lists typically in order of most frequently used?
So they're divided into they're used for different tools as well. So you can see, for example, there's Dirbuster and Derby and Metasploit. We're not going to touch Metasploit, by the way, because there's lots of stuff out there and everyone's kind of cool and interested in Metasploit. But you can find lots of stuff out there. And so I normally get my students to do a little project where they try and figure out how to do it. But so there's different tools and word lists that work better for some things than others. And then you can also download bigger ones from the internet and stuff like that as well. Some of them you've got to pay for these days. They're kind of hidden behind paywalls and crazy stuff like that, which is interesting. And rainbow lists and some other stuff you can get. Does that answer the question? Sort of?
Are they sorted by frequency of use?
Yes. But they're also put into categories for usage.
Within a list, are the most recent word lists?
Oh, and in the very top. Yes. So quite often they're put up in the higher ones. If you take a look, I left the first few in there. Oh. So these are the first kind of ones that they've got in there. Of course, the word lists change, or they can change. So if you've looked at have I been pwned or something like that, and it tells you, your password is in the top 10 or your password's in. So it just depends on what people are doing and stuff as well. But that's, for example, the top list. I don't think that Luis Antonio is probably number 10 though. Right? So just. That could also be me slicing. I think I sliced it at Rocku. So I don't know if Princess is really number 7 or something. But they try and, I guess, put it into some semblance of order. Eventually, it actually does. There are chunks as well. If you take a good look at it, there are chunks of word lists that are basically in alphabetical order as well. I guess to try and get a sort of a continuous roll going. All right, so I've got a slightly smaller word list. You guys have rocku.txt. You'll need to unzip it if you want to use it. As I said, you can chop off about the first 20-odd thousand. Now, what can we use to do it? Look, there's a number of different tools you can use to try and crack a password. Right? And that's, I guess, one of the biggest issues I find with a lot of students and stuff is when we're teaching them is there's just too many different things. So my suggestion is for people to start with a few simple tools, use all of the capabilities of that tool, and then when the tool doesn't have that capability, then find something else, right? So really explore what it is that tool can do before you start moving on to new ones. Like I said, Nmap and NetDiscover, right? Two different tools that can do the same thing. So in this case, we're going to look at Hydra. Right, so Hydra is a password attack. I don't understand why in some respects they've put it under an online attack because it's not going online to do anything. It's, I guess their labeling is saying, look, you can do against something online rather than a password file or something that you've downloaded, for example. Right? So some people get a bit confused about, oh, I need to be able to attack something, I need to be able to gain access to the internet to use it. You don't need the internet access for online attacks. And we can see there's Hydra and a few others in there. So I'm going to choose Hydra, and it pops me up a few options. Again, how to use it, et cetera, et cetera. Probably one of my favorite things about Kali is choosing those options from the list. Obviously, if you just type, if you just grab your terminal and type Hydra or whatever, you can use it, but it's very nice that when you click on it in the list, the first thing it does is it actually just gives you all your help. So, we're going to try Hydra. What are we going to do with Hydra? Well, first of all, do I have a username or a password? So if you have a look at the examples there, we don't have a username field, do we? So we want to ignore that. So we're going to say -l, ignore. Then I'm going to say -p. Now it needs to be capital. What's the difference between capital and lowercase? The main difference is lowercase will do single pass. Capital will allow us to do multiple passes of passwords through it. Okay, then I can put in my word list. So use a share word lists. I'm going to use rolu. So at this point I've said, okay, I want Hydra to ignore the username. This is the list of passwords you're going to use. I then need to point it to my location. Then HTTP, post form. So that's telling it what type of information it's using. So it was using a post, and we could see, we can get this kind of information from in here when we were doing our tests. The other thing I need to figure out, whoops, is if I've got a post form, I need to tell it where it's going to go from. So I'm just going to, oops. Copy that. So we don't need the IP address. I need to know the location of the page that it's going against. Notice I've put it in quotes as well. Common little issue that I've come across is I forget to put quotes, etc. Then I'm saying, okay, the field is called key, right? And at this point, I'm saying when you're going to be putting in a key and we're going to be replacing this pass, that's the caret pass caret, we're going to replace that with the items from our word list. That's the point there. And then we say, oops. And then we say, this is the response you're looking for. When you don't get invalid key, you've got the password. Right? So try your passwords until basically you don't get this second part. And we can give it a little bit of a crack. Probably should take mine around about a minute or two. If you're doing the big attack, I think yesterday I was running it on a slightly slower computer. It probably took about 3 to 4 minutes with just rocku.txt. With this many people, it might take a little longer. So it's a brute force attack. It's not very nice, right? Some sort of intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems should find this out, right? However, if you're just attacking someone's WordPress website or something like that, it's hosted by, I don't know, some web hosting company, they may or may not see that it's happening. It's hosted on, little home servers or something like that, self-hosted, etc. Most likely won't actually happen. So people won't necessarily know what's going on. Bigger organizations will have stuff to be able to try and do it. There are mitigation techniques to try and get around IDSs and IPSs and stuff, but I just want us to kind of see a progression step by step. If you are having to go around any stuff like that, you're testing things at your work, obviously if it's at your workplace and stuff like that, and assuming you're allowed to kind of have a bit of a bash at it, one of the things is you already kind of know what's there. So it can help you sort of get around some of those pieces, but you won't necessarily know about it if you're attacking someone else's sort of system. Obviously, are we allowed to attack other people's systems? Yeah, you are allowed to attack other people's systems, as long as you've got permission. It was one of the first lines in the Certified Ethical Handbook, I'm pretty sure. Make sure you get it in writing too. So this one can take, look, it would probably take somewhere up to maybe 10, 15 minutes for it to try and get the password. So we've indicated, I'm doing roll you, aren't I? Yeah, cool. So it shouldn't take me too long. It's probably everyone having a go at it. Now, how likely is it that someone's going to have a field, for example, with just a password field in there? Unlikely? Isn't it built into WordPress? One of the options is for you to have your pages, and you can have pages that have a password field. You just kind of, there's basically almost a tick box for, hide this page without a password. So that's a really common one. I've seen a few people try and do, look, we'll hide it. It's probably not super common. Obviously, what do we see most of the time? Usernames and password fields, which we will have a little bit of a go at in a moment. So it should try and find our password. Let's see how it goes. 30-ish tries per minute. Let's see, I guess, how much slower it gets.
Excuse me, is anybody able to get pen test 2? Yep. I was having trouble with it before as well.
It dropped out and came back.
But I got on it eventually, but it's still running, I guess.
So, capital L, capital D, capital T. Let's do this. This, yeah, with the THIS. So that should be it. That should be the password. For pen test 2 and 3. Okay. How much longer is that going to take? I know what the password is already, but I want. Has anyone found it? Anyone gotten the password yet? How many people are trying? Fair few. Okay, so no one's got it yet, though.
Now we must be tossing because it's not connecting.
I tried to tap 1,000 passwords.
Hmm?
I tried to tap 1,000 passwords, but it didn't work.
No, it's the password's sitting at around about 25,000, 24,000-ish.
It took me like 10 minutes to get the first 1,000, so 25,000.
Okay. Yeah, that'll take a while.
Saying it's going to take 40 hours or something to get just where you are. 40 minutes.
Well, if you know where it is.
Yeah. That's seeming like it's going to take quite a while to get through all of them. Because it's only doing, I'm getting 30, 40 a minute or something at the moment. Yeah, I know. This thing's just getting smashed. And I gave it a bit more RAM and cranked it up a little. I didn't know how many would do it. Let me... I can shortcut it because I know what it is. How far down? Just want to see roughly where it is. So notice, by the way, I mean, as I said, little chunks that are sort of in some kind of order. Where is it? Anymore. That should be a lot faster. Someone got it. Excellent. So yeah, the password's actually elite. So the password is the word elite. Someone got it. It ran through, you were using the actual, or did you jump, you got rid about the first? Okay, excellent. And how long did it take to tell you? Yeah. Okay. So the password was the word elite. Now, is this, by the way, what time is it? Right on change time. Okay, fair enough. So if anyone's looking at going at the moment or going to another talk, I guess now's probably not a bad time to consider doing it. It's because it's changeover. However, our next thing we're going to be doing is then we've gotten a password, so we can try the word elite in there. What does it do? Now it takes me to a page asking for a username. It's a little backwards here. All right. I'm just going to... no, that didn't work. Let's try something that shouldn't actually help or give me any information. A blank field. Now, obviously, they should be doing some kind of sanitation of their information in this. But it hasn't worked. If someone's not sanitizing information and we're getting things like this, what does it probably mean is actually there this time? Yeah, now this time it looks like we've probably got a database. So the previous one, we had a little hint saying there's no database. And look, that was probably very handy because I know some people that have spent, an hour, 2, 3 hours trying to hack away at that very first key box, trying to see, assuming it's SQL. So in this case, I've got two. I've got Ramses and I've got Isis. And we had a bit of an eye beforehand, so I guess someone's got a little bit of an Egyptian mythology kind of piece going on here. So I've got two users. That's what it's telling me. I've got employee ID 1, employee ID 2. No password fields or anything like that, but thankfully it didn't spit that out. But I could see there's a name and a position. So what can we do with this? Well, we can try doing some SQL injection, for example. Or we could just cheat a little bit. What's another tool? Why would we look at, one of the issues with SQL injection is it's quite a manual sort of process to see what you can and can't get away with at the start. However, there are other ways to do it. So we can use that. What about database attacks? Now, I can use SQLMap. Now, SQLMap's a really common one. What it allows us to do is to test against common techniques to find out, can I access a database? And then if you can access it, you might be able to do some things such as take a dump of a database, etc. Right? Probably one of the biggest issues these days with modern data leaks and stuff like that is people just take dumps of databases. Or they find them randomly online, like has been found with, say, the ABC. I don't know if anyone saw the ABC a few years ago, had just like a completely unprotected AWS S3 bucket with all their backups of databases sitting there. Nice, handy, people just downloaded, so there was like some automated script that was just, dumping them straight in there. And people had, there was potentially years worth. You can look it up if you want to find out a bit more about it. So SQLMap is a really handy way of trying to do it. So I know I've got a username and a password field. I've got lots of tabs going. I've successfully found my password now, thankfully. Right. So there we go. It didn't take too long once I had a very, very short list. So that's how we were able to bring up the page. But I know there's a database there now, so I'm going to use SQLMap to try and see where there it is, to try and get into it. There's some very handy little hints here, and under the target there we can see at least one of these options has to be provided. So I've got to tell it a target. So SQLMap -u, and I can give it the location of the web page. Now, this is the web page URL, and did anyone notice that when I actually typed something in, it puts it in the search string there. Right, so we can see up the top there, the search string has my field. So it successfully worked, but if I put nothing there, when it's got a blank search, it just gives me everything. Right? So that's letting me know, I could probably do something here. Common other ways for people to test and do stuff is, they'll put closed quotes and, and try and sort of see what they can do and see if it'll spit something out. However, this one, what it's done up there is it's tried to change it. It's unicoded it. So there's still ways around it, but it's not the sort of more basic common test that you sort of see. So I'm going to grab this search field, this whole URL, and I'm going to use SQLMap against this. SQLMap will allow us to basically map to try and find out what database types, etc. it has. And based on that, if it finds something that it thinks, this is a bit of a good database type, or if you already know what it is, right, you could probably try and narrow it down a bit. And it'll try and see, okay, what kind of target do we have here? And I've got some automated tests I can use. And if so, then it'll let me know. It should say something like, I found MySQL or something. Possible database type, MySQL. Goes okay. Testing for some sort of injection. Do I want to test for other types of payloads for different databases? A common issue might be something like MySQL, and you go, I'll test just for MySQL. But there is obviously the drag and drop replacement for MySQL these days. So Yeah, so we've got MariaDB, for example. Look, while they say that they're binary compatible, right, the inner workings are a bit different. So you might find that, for example, some stuff will work via MySQL that won't work with MariaDB and vice versa. Different exploits and the like that will or won't work. So, however, I'm going to say yes here. So do I want to skip the specific payloads for other databases? Yes, I want to try and streamline this a little bit. Do you want to include all tests for MySQL? And I'll choose yes there. Sometimes if you choose no at this point, I find what happens is it doesn't find anything, and sometimes it has. And we can see there it's doing some blind searching and the like. It goes, okay. Doing some tests. Found something is injectable, found this is injectable. Right, okay, we've got some. Now, it's found a number of different options here as well. Right? Quite often, it might give you an option there to say something like, do you want to test all the availabilities, or do you want to keep testing? And you can choose no, and it'll kind of skip out at this point. But we can see there's actually a number of different tests that it can use. So do I want to keep testing? Well, probably not. Right? I found a number of different ways to do it. Right, so it goes, okay. We've got the back end is MySQL, and I've got a few databases there. So an information schema, MySQL performance schema, they're all pretty standard ones if you've played with databases like that before. PHP-MyAdmin, well, that's kind of an interesting thing to check. If you'd done something like Dirbuster, right, you would have found that, by the way, if you did Dirbuster. I've got it in kind of the notes on how to use it. If you want to get a copy of these notes, let me know, and I can, maybe put them online or something so people can download them. But and it shows how to do Dirbuster, but it takes just a really, really long time because it's, again, one of those brute force ones. But we found some stuff, and it says I've logged some information. So look, there's two there that I think are kind of interesting, PHP-MyAdmin and Seth. You can troll through all of them if you want. You can take a look at them. But for my sake, I'm going to look at it and go, you know what? What's Seth? Anyone know? What's Seth? Is it what? Another Egyptian guy. Right. So I don't know, there's a comedian or something, I think, with that name as well. So what else can we do? Using the same base, right, saying, all right, I'm going to use this URL with SQLMap, we can actually just do a straight dump. Hyphen, hyphen, dump. I'll make this a bit bigger. And then what do we want to get? Look, let's get the columns because I want to see what they're called. Get all the tables from the database, Seth. Is that big enough for people to read it back? Okay. Now, my wife, by this point, has kind of yesterday sort of gone, sweetheart, why are they always so long? Why are all the commands getting really long, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, Kali is built primarily actually as a bit of a scripty kind of, like, a lot of this stuff is script-based. So it's just accepting, different variables into it. So I can try dumping this database. We'll see how long it takes to do. If there's lots and lots of people, it shouldn't take too long. Because once we've done it, it'll come through. So I'm trying to fetch tables. And what do we got? Well, there was a few different things in there. Position, user, ID, and a pass. Okay, right? So before, when we looked at it, we saw like their user and their position and stuff, but we didn't actually see their, we didn't see the passwords. But now I can see there's a password field. There's Ramsey and his password. ISIS doesn't actually have is not allowed to log in, even though an employee. So we've got a password of some kind here. I guess the question is, what is it? MD5 hash? It can't be? Okay. What if I told you it is an MD5 hash? How? Yes. It's base 64. So we've got to turn it from base 64 into UTF-8 format, and then we'll be able to see it as an MD5 hash. Right, so they've tried to be a little bit nice, right, and secure people's passwords, because MD5, hopefully most of us understand, not a very good way of securing your passwords. I've mentioned the system already once or twice today. What's one of the major systems that uses something like MD5 to store their passwords in their database? WordPress. So look, like the number one kind of, blogging-y kind of, if anyone's done any web development-y kind of stuff, they're bound to have been asked to do WordPress or look at WordPress and stuff.
That was like a SHA fight.
There's a what?
A SHA. That was a SHA encryption password.
This?
Yeah, if it was. Is it possible to crack them?
Look, I mean, it comes down to how much power and stuff do you want to throw at stuff as well. It's not impossible. The higher they get, like, start getting to SHA-256, 512 kind of stuff, you're starting to get, very, very slow. Sorry. So there is. So you guys should be able to run that dump if you want the. Do you want the whole command? There's the command if you want to grab it. So you can. I mean, the big talk these days is, quantum's going to cause problems and blah blah blah. Look, passwords still these days. I guess one of the big things is, people are always talking about encryption and this and that, and yet we still see, for example, asymmetric encryption used in places. We see broken forms of encryption used as a default system. I find, yeah, sure, in some ways you can get into some stuff. So there are some that are almost impossible to break, or they just take so long. You'd need so much computing power that really it's unrealistic to do it. Yeah, but so we've got a password. What are we going to do with this password? Try it, just like that. So I got to decode it some way. Okay, so let's. That's it. All right. Does that look a little bit more like a MD5? Yep. Okay, so we can try and crack that now. Now we're getting into real passwordy kind of territory, right? So I'm just going to pump that to a. You got something different. Notice I put an equal after the capital E. Right? Without that, funnily enough, without that, it doesn't actually work. I haven't figured out exactly what it is that's doing it. Yeah, to be able to. Okay, does that make sense? Did people hear that? So the reason why we needed to put that there is for padding, to get it out to an even length of bits. So I'm going to put that into a file. Let's remove hash. I've got #2 in there. So I've got my password now in a file that I can look at. There's one small problem, and that's that it doesn't have a Didn't have a line break at the end, so nice to put a bit of a line break there at the end. Please be aware, of course, single versus double. So I've got my password back from a base 64 to an MD5. So what could we use to try and break MD5? Google. But I didn't give you access to the internet. Look, yeah, like md5online.org or something like that, you know, there's like, you know, just throw that straight into Google. That's crazy. Okay, yeah, I haven't tried that. Yeah, look. So there's a number of different tools we've got built into Kali to do it. So I mean, Google's a bit too easy. So why would we do something as? So yeah, but Google's just You might as well just say, hey Google, you know, break into this computer for me. I guess eventually it might actually happen. All right, so we've got a few options. Someone said John the Ripper, Hashcat. Sorry? Yeah. So if we've got a rainbow table, we could just use a rainbow table to match it up, and then it'll find like, you know, what it is that's in MD5 format, and you know, tell us the corresponding things. Rainbow tables. The problem, there's a not a big problem, there's a problem with rainbow tables in that it's just literally a find, a search field. So depending on how big the rainbow tables are and stuff like that, like it's not unheard of for people to be searching through, you know, for 5 days or something to find what it is. And there's a lot of computing power that's gone in to try and make those rainbow tables as well. So some of them are a bit harder to get your hands on, especially some of the really big ones. So I don't know, I try not to download those kinds of things from some places on the internet because you just don't know what else they've stuck in there with it and all that kind of stuff.
Rainbow table has to be computed.
Once it's computed, it's done.
Right. You're not going to make it yourself.
No, but then you got to sort through, or you got to list, you know, basically, you got to do a search to find that exact match all the way through. It's quite a fast search. It's way faster than trying to just brute force figure out what it is, but it's still like it's effectively a find. You know, so you're looking through. There's faster searches. Yeah, it is. It's sorted, so it'll find it relatively quickly, hopefully. Yeah. So someone's already done it. Okay. So what did you do? You used Hashcat. Okay. Anyone else done it? Yeah. What did you use? DuckDuck. Fine. Let's use John the Ripper then. So DuckDuckGo, Hashcat. All right. So what? Which is faster? Well, what is the fastest way? Probably DuckDuckGo. The first page of results. Yeah, it's too easy. So I'm going to try and tell it to, hey, I want you to search for using John the Ripper against #2. Double hyphens. Hyphen show. And there we go. It's one I kind of cheated a little bit and did it a little bit earlier to put it in the database. Common issues at this point as well is people try and use John and it doesn't have a word list or something there, so you might have to say word list equals and then point it to, say, for example, your Rockyou or whatever it is that you're using as your word list. That's a common issue right at the start, so people will try it. In that case, you can get rid of the show and you can put in the -- word list. Okay, so I've got a password now. omega. Are we happy with that? What can we do with it? What can I do with omega? I've got a password. Do I have a username? Yep, so we've got a username there. There's only one of them that will work. We saw in our database, ISIS is not allowed to log in. So we're going to have to use Ramses. And what are we going to try and log into? Right, there was no pass, like, yeah, we could try SSH. Well, this isn't going to do very much. So that didn't do anything. So we need to SSH. All right, so SSH, Ramses at 192.168.1.102. It's not letting me in. Telnet. Different port. Yeah, okay, so they've obfuscated it a little bit, like, oh, well, it'll be tricky. Right? Instead of running it on port 22, like, you know, a common one, like, I'll run it on 2222 or something. You know, or, so they've put it on port 777. That would have come up if, I think, was it this one? If when we did our port scan, if we'd done a deeper scan, we would have found the port 777. So now it's letting me in. Okay. And as everyone tries to log in. Once we're in, what kind of stuff can we do? We can what? Change his password? Okay, yeah, well, a common thing we want to try and do, if we think back to that, you know, sort of chain, right? One of the last things we want to try and do is we want to get the ability to install software, for example. Now, Ramses may or may not be allowed to do that kind of stuff. We want to be able to try and get to root, right? That's what most people want, right? So I've got to try and get to root. So what kind of stuff can I do? I can start, you know, a little bit of black boxing, try and figure out what I can do. We can what? Ah. Yeah, it's just, the terminal's a little slow for some unknown reason. I'd have thought it'd be a good idea to have 50 people hacking to the one box at the same time. So, no. Yeah, no Christmas presents for you. Look, that didn't work. Look, hopefully that would be a really good way of doing it, and most people have some sort of pseudo accesses and stuff like that if you're an administrator. It's probably one of the best reasons I know to have 2 usernames and 2 user accounts and stuff. So if any of your workplaces have it, this is one of the really good reasons why. Okay, so that's not going to work. All right, yeah, let's take a look at the bash history. Before like 100 people log out or something. Okay, so I've got a few things in here. Who's Eric? I don't know. And why is he in my computer? Why am I trying to get there? Look, we could have a bit of a crack at that, see what it is. Is Eric in the passwords file? If you have a look, yes he is. Anyone else got any other things that they think might be interesting to look at? Okay, so we've got a backup folder. Right, some sort of procwatch script. Yeah, so we could take a look at what's in the... right, there's another machine there that is pinged. We don't have it there. I can guarantee there is no .56 network. So look, there's a few different paths we can go down. For example, at this point, I've got access to, say, the password file, right? I can take a look at that, see what accounts are in there, and maybe try having a bit of a bash at that. If we want, we could potentially try and see if we can see the shadow file or something. I mean, we shouldn't be able to see it, but maybe they've configured something wrongly. But someone's kind of pointed out the backup file. And how are we doing for time? What time do we finish? 12-ish? 20 minutes. Okay, yeah, no, easy. We should be finished this in, depending on how long it goes, maybe 10, 15 minutes. All right. So look, you could have a look at Eric, try and see what it is. So let's try SU Eric. Right. Doesn't work. I don't know his password. Yeah, there's other users like Bob. Right. Then, so we can see Bob there. We can see Eric. Right. Yeah, so we could take a look at the home folders. Okay, so we can see Bob, Eric, Ramsey. So we could maybe have a bit of a crack around that kind of stuff. But for time, yes. So I've got a folder here. I've got a folder there called backup. And it's a really big issue when you see stuff on the internet where people say, oh, I'm having a problem with my permissions, and they go, oh, just chmod 777. Right, lo and behold, what do we got? We've got a backup folder. Right? I'm often introducing a lot of students to Linux. Typically, my class to do with Linux is normally the first time they've ever come across it. And it's one of these things that I find I've got to make sure that I don't keep teaching people or allow them to see stuff on the internet that they shouldn't really be looking at, besides all the other naughty sort of stuff on the internet that they should be looking at. So, for example, something like saying, hey, chmod 777. I'm like, guys, this is a really big issue. Right? And normally through one of the last kind of classes, I try and run them through this kind of a sort of scenario, capture the flag kind of afternoon, and that to show them what kind of stuff it can do. So what's in our backup folder? Well, there's a file there called procwatch and a file called readme. And who is it? And what have they done? Yeah, so when I run procwatch, I'm running it as root.
What's the S in the permissions for?
Setting the user ID. So in other words, when I run it, the first part there where it says root, right, that's who it'll actually run as. And the issue with it's going to be, it's potentially going to call something else. So we can take a look at it and go cat procwatch. Oh, oops. Back up, procwatch. Not a very handy file to look at. So it's an executable file. Not particularly smart the way they've done this. So they've given me a fully readable folder, right? Read, write, executable. And then they've given me something that's going to run as a root user. So how can we use this to try and get around it? What can I do? Sorry?
Or read the readme and see what it says. Run it and see what it does, and then you figure out it runs PS, and then you run the path.
Okay. So procwatch, yes, will run PS.
Path equals slash backup procwatch.
So that's my path at the moment. Now, there's a few options available at this point, right? One of the easiest things to do is basically copy the bin sh, right? Copy the ps as well. Put them in your path at the beginning, and it'll get you through to a shell. It'll load the shell rather than the ps command actually running. So what we could see is this is a bit of path manipulation as well, all because they've left something that they shouldn't actually have. Okay. Where am I? Keep going. Now, at this point, depending on how many people are logged in, not too many. So at this point, there's a few different ways. So has someone's actually gotten there already? Yeah. 3. From the 2 different ones. Now notice, by the way, see this? So some people are coming from 1.50, some are coming from 1.40. So that was one of the ones that didn't sort of show up, as I said, but we can see it there. So those of you that have got in, what did you do? Okay, copied bin sh.
Copied bin bash to local dirt, modified path.
Okay, so copied bin bash, same thing. Someone else? Bash won't work.
Works for me.
Try ID after you've run it and see what it tells you.
Who am I? What did it say? Okay.
Not who am I, ID.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, look, it's,
Do you care about EU? Okay.
who are you?
Not my effective ID.
So you're kind of in like a weird quasi-state at the moment. Right? But can you access the root's home directory, for example? Yeah, you could still access everything. Right, so he's sort of halfway there. So it's, in fact, that one I think is a little bit like when you sudo with su without the hyphen. You're kind of like halfway between, like you sort of haven't loaded their full profile yet. Yeah. So you're not,
If you start bash -l, then you get what you want.
he's still got access.
Yeah, but if you want to clean one, start bash with the login shell.
Yeah, but we're hacking. Do we really want clean? We don't really care how clean or not. I just want access, right? So, I mean, probably, yes, that's a nicer way to do it. You know, and it gives you a better ID format, but it's not necessarily going to, change his abilities. Okay, let's see, where have people started putting stuff? There we go. Let's go, actually. Not in there. I'm not root. Yeah. To try and stop it. So whose was I using? Okay.
You must have overridden mine
After he's done it.
Yours is PS1.
Okay. So let's go. Yeah.
You should just be able to put it in /temp and then put the path to /temp as well.
That's still your normal.
Yeah.
I'll get rid of mine.
Let's see how many people are still in there. Someone else has done it. Is that a different person? Can't tell. 4 now.
But don't you want to copy MSH to it?
No, that should work. Oh, okay.
There's a root shell that just call it -h.
Here's one piece. No. Let's just take a look and see what people have got. No. So I still don't have permission. All right, I'll take a quick look at my cheat notes. Yeah, people have made them executable. They look right.
No, you don't run PS1, you do path equals dot /crosswatch.
Yes.
He's already got the path set correctly.
PS needs to be executable.
PS, yeah, I need to accept it.
I've got that.
You need to make PS executable.
I just did.
No.
Now, I have an idea. It's because it's bash.
Yeah.
You can see the size of matches PS2.
Yeah.
If you move PS1 over PS, that's shell, so it's PSH, that's double. Probably have to move PS aside first because someone's probably still executing it.
Get root. Okay, let's go. Let's see if that works. No. There. And now I've got it. So I'm not exactly sure with that many people what they were copying and stuff like that. But you can see what I've done is I've copied the shell and I've copied the PS command. So when it's tried to run it, it's ended up running my shell for me, loading me into the ability to move into root. But I'm not actually kind of root. I'm sort of in that halfway format. Right? I'm still kind of Ramsey there. But I'm root. So at this point, have we got access to the box? Yeah, well and truly. Can we do anything we want? Yeah, look, we can create our own user accounts, I guess, install some sort of root kits, put in, or anything that we want. Now, proof.txt, by the way, will give you some information. And you can email the person. This came from, I think it was from Nullbytes. It was downloaded from VulnHub a while ago. Has anyone heard of VulnHub? A few people. VulnHub. So what it is it's a website that you can go to, and people put on their vulnerable systems and little capture the flag challenges and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's fun. It's kind of a fun place to go to be able to download some virtual machines and the like that you can kind of have a bit of a crack at, rather than something like Metasploitable. So Metasploitable is a good tool, and it's good for people to learn what to do. Version 2 is easy to get. Version 3, you kind of got to build yourself a bit. So, but they're both very good. The problem is, although they're not necessarily real-world examples, like they're deliberately kind of vulnerable, there's lots of cool stuff in there, so they're really good to learn. But unlike, say, this kind of a thing, there's not, this doesn't have 300 different ways you can try and get into the system. Whereas something like Metasploitable will give you many, many, many different ways to try and do stuff, and lots of different tools. And if you go to Multiliday, you can see that there's... Is anyone sort of having a bit of a go at 101? Right. So that's Metasploitable there for you, version 2, which was on the network if anyone was having a bit of fun with it or something. So you could have seen that, as it says there. But with the one that we were playing with, 101, was a custom built, someone built it, I think, as I said, from null bytes. And I got it, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. And that allowed me to, sort of have a bit of fun with it and see what it is. And there weren't really a lot of write-ups. You'll find sometimes some write-ups for some of the stuff you see from VulnHub, if you see them there, thank you. And then, so you can download them, run them. Be a bit careful where you run them, of course, because if you're downloading any virtual machines and stuff like that, A, don't put them on trusted networks. B, don't trust them yourself. So I normally put them on, I got like a crappy little machine. So that way I don't really sort of infect my network. But this was a bit of I guess, an introduction into some of the stuff that we could do. So did we find the servers? Yeah, look, we found some. We didn't find all of them. There was one kind of device that only 1 or 2 people found, but obviously it was a bit of an issue, I think, with scanning for that much stuff. Did we find some vulnerabilities? Definitely. Look, the checking the image for information is just a little bit of fun, and why not? Not really a real world kind of stuff, but we found a few different ways to try and grab some passwords and the like. We did a little bit of an SQL exploit. Using that, we were able to dump a database. Look, at that point, some hackers are like, sweet, got a database, got usernames, passwords, things like that. Or I've got credit card details, especially if they're not following proper PCI DSS kind of formats and the like. So, there's a lot of issues with people just grabbing a database. They don't necessarily need to keep going. But then we sort of went a little bit further and kind of owned the box, so to speak. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, any quick questions? We've got a minute or 2.
The MySQL exploit worked because they were taking input and not sanitizing and then sending to the MySQL, right?
Yes, and it gives you a lot of information there showing you which kind of exploits and stuff like that they were successful.
So nowadays, does anything decent still allow that? I mean,
unfortunately, yes. So if you take a look at OWASP top 10 kind of stuff, right, you'll still see those kinds of things still sitting there in the easy top 10. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Any other questions? Quick questions? All right. If you got, sorry. Sure. Promo for Sard Wonder Powder?
No. If you're in Southeast Queensland and you like this kind of stuff, come to Sec Talks. Actually, there are Sec Talks in all the capital cities. SECT Talks. Just look it up on meetup.com.
Yep. Meetup.com, Sec Talks. I haven't actually come. I only just moved up here a few months, or early last year.
First one this year in Brisbane next Thursday night.
Okay. And AWS have some guys that do some AWS sort of security talks and stuff like that. There's a few other ones. If you've got my USB sticks, please do me a favor. You can shut down your machines or whatever and then give me the USB sticks back, preferably. I don't know, actually, should I really want them back? You know what, you can keep them. So I'll probably just throw them out anyway. What else? Look, thank you very much. Thanks for trying it out, having a bit of fun with it. I hope you sort of started to see that, look, some of these tools that are built in there are relatively easy to use. They're a bit arcane with some of the voodoo that goes with it, but once you know the commands and stuff, it's relatively easy. And yeah, thank you very much for coming in.